real estate investor and founder of Real Estate Rebel. So, after starting her journey with no mentor, no connections, zero net worth, Tiffany turned her curiosity into a 15-year career rooted in grit, faith, and a passion for community. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here on the Goalpreneur podcast. I am excited to learn from you and hear how you went from being a flight attendant to now real estate
Mm,
investor and where your specialty lies with
yes,
that. So I'm turning everything over to you.
great. I'm so happy. Thank you, Courtney. I'm so happy to be here on Goalpreneur. I think this is an awesome opportunity to actually speak to your viewers, be able to offer information that may be able to help them if they're interested in real estate investing. So, just to give you a little bit of information about me, I'm a mom, wife. Um, I've been in the real estate industry for over, let's say, 20 years now. So I've accumulated knowledge throughout the years. I first fell in love with real estate because of a missed opportunity. What had happened was I was a flight attendant, still currently a flight attendant, by the way, but I just do it more so on a part-time basis. But when I started my career, flight attendant, I had an opportunity to leave the flying industry because of September 11th. I'm kind of dating myself now, where it gave me an opportunity to take a break from flying. So what I ended up doing is I ended up working for an outside sales company selling postage meters, right? Kind of different. And so what they would do is they would do a series of training, and then they would put us in situations where we would go to events where we can kind of horn in on our skills. So I went to this sales event, and it was so many different people there, renowned salespeople that were like the best, the top of the top speaking. And this real estate mogul came on stage, and he was talking about how you could purchase real estate with no money. Now, in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute, purchase real estate with no money. What are you talking about? How can you make this happen? Like, is this a scam? So as he proceeded to talk more, I was kind of drawn to him because he seemed very honest, very authentic in that moment. So he was saying if you were interested and you wanted to learn a little bit more, to come to his seminar that he was offering for free. So that's what I did. I went to the free seminar and I was there for a couple of days and I learned everything that I could possibly learn until we got to the point where he was like, listen, I'm only going to give you this much information. Anything else that you're going to want to know, you're going to have to pay for it.
Mhm.
So, of course, the money that he was asking for me to pay for, I couldn't afford it, right? I just simply couldn't afford it. So, I took what I learned and I said, you know what? I'm going to just try it. I'm going to apply it. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to see if I can get me a real estate property with no money down. So the very next day, I got on, went into the yellow pages. I'm really dating myself. I was looking for sale by owners, right? And I was calling on them just like he told me to, trying to find a homeowner that was interested in selling their property. Now, people were hanging up on me left and right. Right. I think I made about 40 some odd phone calls, and everybody was like, I'm not interested, or they just wouldn't even hear the spiel. They would just hang up immediately. But I got to my last call, and on that last call, there was actually an investor, right, that was interested in selling his property. So he said, you know what? Why don't you come by and check it out? So that's what I did. He had a single family house with two apartment units in the back. So it was a total of 3 units. So here I am going to see this property with this investor. I'm so green. I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't know what to say, but I just know that I'm going to do this, right? So I get with him. We start talking. He starts showing me around the property. Showed me through the house first, right? Then he took me in the back, which is where the two apartments were, and I met the tenants back there. By the time we got finished viewing the property, he tells me he wants to sell the property for $450,000. I was 27.
Ooh, not exactly sure what happened here. I think we lost Tiffany. that has never happened, but hello, this is real life. This is raw. Um, if you, I'm going to wait for her, give her a few minutes to jump back in here. So on the Goalpreneur podcast, I do very little editing. Everything is real life. It's raw. I mean, I'm not a super polished person by nature. Um, and that the thought of having something super polished, super put together, super professional, it actually makes me a little bit nervous. And then I get all fumbled and my mind's going 1,000 different directions. So um yeah, and that's why I do very little editing, because I want people listening and watching the podcast for this to resonate with them. And I know how I have felt listening or watching something, and I'm like, wow, they're super professional, very polished, put together, and there's no way I can, do everything to a T how they're teaching. It's just I would be all over the place. So the Goalpreneur podcast, we're very real, we're very raw, very little editing, like I had said. And yeah, things like this, it happens. So just gonna wait for her to come back on. So Tiffany, if you missed the first few minutes, Tiffany is a former full-time flight attendant. She is now part-time. But she started getting into real estate investing, and um, her story of how she started out in real estate investing through tax liens is so interesting. A couple of years ago, my husband actually went to a seminar. It was free, and it gave him the very basics on how to get into real estate investing through tax liens. So, to my understanding, it's people that are behind on their taxes, behind on whatever, and they're going to lose their house. So, you can come in, pay the taxes or back taxes, and now you have the deed to that property. That's my understanding. I could be totally wrong. And that's why Tiffany's here to talk to us about all of that. Um, so let's see if I can send her another invite. So if you're watching this, we are live on YouTube. Let's send her the invite again. Okay. But yeah, this has never happened. So I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes, and then if she is not able to come back into this studio, then I will close out this recording, and you'll have a good funny story about my Goalpreneur podcast episode live on YouTube. And the funny thing about that is I just started recording live or having it go live for the podcast this past Tuesday. So just like 2 days ago. That was the first episode that I did that was also streaming live on YouTube, and no glitches there. Thank God. But today, a little bit of a glitch, not too bad. And I mean, par for the course, right? Things like this happen. So I started a little backstory while we're waiting for Tiffany to rejoin. So I started the Goalpreneur podcast in January of 2024, legit on a whim. And it was, I just had this energy, this nudging to record a podcast episode. So I started recording. And it wasn't until 6 months later that I did another live episode. And then it was a month after that. And then October is when I really started digging my heels in to the podcasting world. And I talk very openly about many different topics, and how this is real life. things like this happen. So it looks like we have Tiffany back with us. All right. Can we hear you? There you are.
Yes.
There you are.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep. So I was just talking. As soon as we lost you, I'm
Great.
like, oh, gotta pivot. But I was explaining to the audience, like, this is real life. This happens, and how I just started doing live um, casting to YouTube 2 days ago. So the glitches in life, they happen. Got to learn to
Yes.
pivot and readjust. It is what it is. So glad to have you
Yes.
back with us.
Yes.
So let's pick up
Yes.
where
And
we
we
left
keep
off.
going. Yes.
Yep. So you
I'm glad to
started
be
getting
back, everybody.
into, yeah. So you started getting
Okay.
into, you went to the free workshop
So,
and you learned about real estate investing. And
yep, I went
then,
to the free workshop. Yes.
oh, yeah.
Then I actually applied what I learned, right? I applied what I learned. So I actually met with the seller. He was showing me a property he was interested in selling. He had a single family house with two apartment units in the back, right? So it was a total of 3 units. He takes me through. He's showing me everything all the way through into the termite damage that's in the basement. I meet the tenants. Everything's going well. Then he tells me that he's selling this property for $450,000. Now, I was 27. $450,000, you could have told me it was a million. I couldn't afford it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I tell him, I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, for wasting your time, but I can't afford 450. That's going to be out of my budget. So then he asked me, he was like, well, what do you plan on doing with this property? And I told him, well, I'm a flight attendant as my career, and I was planning on turning these units into what we call crash pads in the flight attendant industry and pilot industry. It's where we have housing basically for airline employees. It's kind of like a Airbnb for the airline industry, right? So I
Nice.
told him that that was my intention. And he said, well, you know what? I have a friend that's a mortgage lender. Maybe you should give him a call. He may be interested in partnering in on this with you on this deal. So I said, okay, I'll give him a call. So I called the lender. We sat down for coffee. He said, you know what, Tiffany, I spoke with Frank. Frank told me your situation. He said, and guess what? You don't need to have any money to buy this property. We're going to partner in on this deal. I'm the money man. So I'll have the money, but I need from you, what I need you to do is I need to make sure that these units are occupied with flight attendants and pilots, and I'm going to need you to manage it. He was like, your name will be on the deed as well, but don't worry about the money situation. I got that. So we ended up doing a purchase offer agreement. We ended up partnering in on the deal. And I found from that situation that you absolutely can purchase real estate without having any money. It's about necessarily you may need to find someone that you can partner with. It's about you being able to have certain resources and assets that you can bring to the table. But there's a lot of different ways that you can structure a deal. Now, consequently, what ended up happening is the airline industry called me back. And in that moment, I had to decide I was going to be relocated to a whole different city, a whole different state. And I needed to decide at that time whether or not I was going to move forward because I had about 30 days to rescind. Right. So now I'm thinking to myself, I'm under contract with this property and I'm in the process of moving forward on something that could be fabulous. Right. But can I do this from a different state? And do I
Mhm.
really know what I'm doing? So I ended up calling friends and family, asking people, what do you think I should do? Should I stay? Should I back out? Not really realizing at the time that, hey, you're a flight attendant. So if you wanted to and needed to make this happen, you absolutely could. You could just hop on a plane when you need to. But that's more so hindsight. At the time, I just didn't know how I was going to make it happen. So what I ended up doing is asking everyone what I should do. Everyone told me I was crazy. Everyone told me I should back out. Everyone told me I was green and I didn't know what I was doing and I was too young. My gut, though, my gut said, you know what, Tiff, move forward. But out of fear, I decided to back out.
Oh,
So I ended up rescinding. Yeah, I ended up rescinding I ended up canceling the contract.
Well, happened again. That's all right. Um, I promise you, her information, her story is really good. And for some reason, technology just doesn't want us to share it. Maybe because the technology is listening. I am not a conspiracy theorist, I don't think, but I wonder if the technology is listening and they're like, no, we don't want people to know how to do this. We don't want people to make more money. We don't want people to know what Tiffany has to say.
To say,
So,
oh my God. And look, and I know now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna navigate this. So now I'm back. So I'm trying to get this out before we lose internet again. So long story short, I backed out because I was afraid. I was scared. And I didn't listen to my intuitive gut, my instinct that told me that I needed to move forward. So from there, 5, 6 years later, fast forward, I get a phone call from a friend who's like, Teff, were you going to buy that property and such and such, such and such? And I was like, yeah, I had it under contract. She was like, girl, don't you know they completely regentified the whole area? There's nothing but condos and high rises. Developers came in and they ended up buying out all the homeowners and offering them over $1 million for some of their properties, the ones that were multi-family units. So I
oh,
was like,
was that a gut
you mean I
punch?
could have been a millionaire? A gut punch all at once. All at once. And in my mind, I'm thinking I was this close, this close to experiencing financial freedom on a whole different level. So from that moment, that one moment, I was like, never, ever, ever again. I'm going to find out and learn everything that I can about real estate because when another opportunity presents itself, guess what? I'm going to be ready. So from there, I got my real estate license. I started working with first time homeowners, showing them properties. Um, Went back to flying. So I would do my little flights and my trips. And then when I get off from work, the next day I would show properties. I was doing that. Then after doing that for so long, I was like, I really want to learn the investing side. I don't want to just be a real estate agent selling properties. I want to learn how to buy properties. So I kind of segued into the REO bank owned sector, which deals with bank owned properties. And my broker that I ended up working underneath lists and sold bank owned properties. So
Now,
I did
can
that for
I,
a while.
what is REO? I don't know what that is, and other people might not
So
know either.
no worries, no worries. So that is a different sector, a different market where you're dealing with bank owned properties, right? Properties that the bank owns and they want to get rid of them. They want to sell them. Usually it's because of a default on a mortgage, right? So sometimes they will look to different brokers, real estate brokers, to help assist them manage and sell their properties that they now own, that they had to recover because someone defaulted on their loan. So that's what my broker did. He had a partnership, I guess. Let's just say the bank was his client, and what he would do is he would get the property once it's been defaulted on. He would get it, ready to sell, and he would list it and put it back out there to the market for investors to actually purchase it. So whenever he would get a listing, my buyers are usually they were all investors. They would be interested. So they would be the ones that would buy the property. So he would list them and then he would put them out there for me and I would get buyers to buy those properties along with other real estate agents as well, right? So I did that. And that was phenomenal. It was amazing. I was closing on multiple deals. I was actually learning about real estate investing because I was actually working with investors and they were giving me tidbits of information about how they get their financing, how they got started in real estate investing. So then I was like, okay, this is great. And then what happens? COVID, another major instance in life, right? So I'm like, oh my God, uh, am I ever going to survive and really do this real estate thing? So COVID happened. So I was like, oh my God, you can't evict, you can't foreclose. That was what the moratorium, the governmental moratorium was about.
Yeah.
They had issued something where they told, the banks and stuff, you don't evict anyone, don't foreclose. So what ended up happening.
Well, I just may have to start editing a little bit of this podcast episode, but that's okay. Um, Tiffany is up. So I'm in Florida, and Tiffany is up in the northeastern part of the states. I think she's in Jersey. But I don't think they have any bad storms there. Um, but we all know Wi-Fi technology, it can be super glitchy sometimes. But yeah, looks like she's back.
So stalled the market. It stalled the market. There was no evicting. There was no foreclosing. So what ended up happening is my broker stopped getting those listings. He no longer receiving those listings, right? So then I was in a pivotal point in my life where I had to figure out, well, what am I going to do? Because at that point, I was in jeopardy of being laid off from the airlines, right? Because of COVID, and I was in jeopardy. My backup plan, which was, having a real estate license, was now in jeopardy as well because the market that I was in was stalled because of that. But I was still having investors reach out to me saying that they were still buying and they were still looking for property. So I had to pivot. And so from this point, I'm thinking I need to think outside the box. I got to figure out a way to make money for me and my family. So I get online, I start calling for sell by owners through Craigslist, believe it or not, trying to find good investment deals for my investor clients, right? And I came across one deal that looked sound and looked very good. And I reached out to that seller and I told him, I said, hey, I have an interested buyer that may be interested in purchasing your property. Can I get some more information about it? So he was like, sure, but I need to sell this property like in the next 21 days. And I'm like, okay, why? And he was like, well, I have it under contract. I'm a wholesaler. Now, at this point, I didn't know anything about wholesaling at all. So I had to get fresh, I had to figure out quickly what that was about. So what he explained to me was that he currently had the property under contract with the original owner, and he only had a certain amount of time to find an end buyer to purchase the property. So what happens is a wholesaler will call on people that are going through some type of financial crisis, let's just say some type of financial hardship, or just a hardship in life. It may be someone going through a foreclosure, it may be someone going through a divorce, it could be a death in the family. They will call on this particular seller and offer them a cash deal to purchase their property. Now, more than likely, it's a cash offer, which means it's probably going to be a little bit discounted below market. But usually, what happens is if that person is in a bind, then it's kind of like, okay, this is a great opportunity. So
Yeah.
let's just say, for an example, I call you, you want to sell your property. I offer you $250,000. You say, you know what? I'm going through a foreclosure. I'm about to lose this house anyway. Let's do it. Right. And then what happens is you and I go under contract. I tell you I'm going to purchase it within this set time frame, right? For that amount. And then what happens, me as a wholesaler, after I have this under contract with you, will then market the same property to an end buyer, which is usually an investor.
Well, I just don't think technology wants this episode to air, but we're live on YouTube. And for the episode on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, I will be editing a little bit of this out. Um, but yeah, the glitching, I mean, that happens sometimes. I think she's back. Tiffany, you with us? There we are.
Do is they'll offer the investor the same property that they have under contract for $300,000. So keep in mind, they just got it under contract for $250,000. Now they're going to remarket that property to some future buyer, which could be probably a real estate investor, a cash investor, for $300,000. So what happens is when you get to closing day, they end up making the money in between. The wholesaler does. They end up finding a buyer that's going to actually purchase the property that they have under contract at a higher price. And so in this instance, that wholesaler would make $50,000, if that makes sense, because they
Okay.
had it under contract for 250 and then they marketed it for 300,000. So what I would do is in that instance, I had buyers. So I would just go to these wholesalers and I would find them buyers and then they would pay me a fee, right, for that service, marketing and securing a buyer from them. So I started to close deals this way. And I was like, you know what? This is working for me, right? This is a niche market I was unfamiliar with. And I'm
Yeah.
actually learning more about real estate from doing this, right? So I did that. I did that for several years until now I'm still currently doing it. So I kind of turned a side hustle real estate business by hap chance into an actual real estate business. So what ended up happening is I got all the education that I needed, the investing education from doing this, and from there I started purchasing my own real estate investments, right? But what I did and what I currently do is I invest in tax lien properties. That's how I invest because for me, I want to be able to purchase the properties at pennies on the dollar if possible, the cheapest way that I can afford, what's affordable for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I found out tax lien real estate investing through tax liens is extremely affordable. I bought my first tax lien property for $2,500, believe it or not. I didn't even know that was possible. And
That's
so from
insane.
there,
Wow.
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
insane. I when it happened, I was like, did I just get a house for $2,500?
Yeah. And when was this? Was that
And no one tells you this was probably about 4 years ago when
okay?
I got it. And no one told me, no one told, I took a course and then I did my research about tax liens. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to try it. And what I found is real estate tax lien investing is the most, I'll say the minimal risk of type of investing that you can actually do. Because when you invest in a tax lien property, you're actually purchasing the lien on that property. Now, let me explain.
Or don't explain. Oh, gotta love technology. So now Tiffany's starting to get into the really good stuff, the good content. This is where your ears need to perk up and really pay attention because tax liens, I knew very little about tax liens previously. And then just a little bit of what my husband had told me after attending that free seminar that he did years ago. But you can purchase houses for 2,500 bucks, like Tiffany just said. It is possible. So it looks like she's coming back. There we are. Okay, so you purchased a house, you purchased a
I'm
tax lien for
for 20
$2,500.
2,500 tax lien. Yeah.
Okay.
hmm And what you don't know, a tax lien, everyone, when you buy a house, you are responsible for paying property taxes, right? But what happens is if you default on those taxes, that town, that city, whatever, they have a right to reclaim that property from you. Now, what's going to happen is they're not going to immediately just take your property when you're behind on your property taxes. They're going to send you out an insurmountable amount of notices, giving you the opportunity to get caught up. But what happens is if you don't get caught up, they end up doing an auction for that property and they place the house in that auction, right? And even after that happens, they still give you an opportunity to redeem. And we'll talk about that too. So what happened is I ended up buying this, getting this tax lien, and I went on to an auction. I do Lake County, Indiana, because for me it's affordable. It only costs like $600 to register. The highest bidder wins the property, right? And what happens is when you bid on those properties, the highest bidder wins the lien. When you get the lien, you're not immediately the actual owner of the property. So keep that in mind. You don't immediately become the owner because you've actually won that tax lien. What happens is you got to hold on to that lien for a set period of time because the original homeowner has the right and the opportunity to redeem the property. Now, depending on what city or the state that you're in, there's different time frames for redemption. I choose Indiana because that's the cheapest, not the cheapest, but the shortest redemption period. It's 4 months, right? So they have literally, you do the auction and they literally have 4 months after the auction to redeem on that property. Now, let's just
So,
say they say, okay, I'm going to pay everything back, I'm going to redeem. What happens is they have to pay back the taxes that they're behind on. They have to pay back the money that you bid to win the property, and they got to pay an interest fee on top of that, right? For Indiana.
wow. Okay, so what Tiffany was just talking, what I understood is so different states they have different time frames. And if you purchase a tax lien, if you win that bid, okay, so like she spent $2,500, there's the time frame that needs to that you need to wait, and that gives the house owner time to come back and pay the fees, the interest, the back taxes, and the additional money that Tiffany had spent. So let's say $2,500. So that's my understanding. So each state has a different time frame of when you purchase the lien or when you win the bid to when you're actually the homeowner. Okay. So you're back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Indiana's 4 months, right? So what happens is if the person comes back and they pay all that back, you don't lose anything. So let's just say if you did a bid and you won it for $2,500, you won the tax lien, right? You became now the lien holder of that property. You would make 10% on top of that at the end of the 4 month time frame. If by chance they don't redeem, you get the property. And what happens is after the 4 month time frame, you can foreclose on it, and from through the foreclosing process, you actually receive the deed, which makes you the actual homeowner or the new homeowner of that property. Every city and state is different time frames on redemption periods, like Philadelphia. And there's different types of tax liens and tax deeds because they're a little bit different. If you're dealing with a tax deed state, every state is different. Some states are tax liens, some states are tax deeds, some are both. Let's just say Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, they are a tax deed state. So when you win the auction, the highest bidder, you actually win the deed of the property, which is phenomenal. Okay. So you actually immediately that day can become the owner of that particular property, right? After you
Okay.
pay. And what happens is there still is a redemption period for the original homeowner. That redemption period there is 9 months, right? You win the deed, you are now the official home owner of that property. But I wouldn't recommend doing anything to that property until after 9 months because there is a 9 month redemption period. So I wouldn't do any renovations because if the person does come back and redeem, they're going to get a new house and you don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
I would actually leave it, maybe put some paint on it, maybe do some small things, rent it out, and immediately get the cash flow from it, right? Within those 9 months, you can actually change the locks. You can kind of spruce it up, paint, do whatever you want to do to actually get the cash flow rental income from it. And then at the end of the 9 months, if they did not redeem it, then you can do whatever you want to do. Either you can keep renting it, you can decide, I'm going to really fix it up and I'm going to flip it and sell it. You can actually do whatever you want to do at that point in time. But it's a beautiful thing. And a lot of people aren't aware of that type of investing, whether it's through tax liens or tax deed. Like I said, every state has an auction. Different states do different things for redemption periods. You just have to do your due diligence, but it's really worked for me. And I thought that, I would share my knowledge with other women and anyone else that's interested in real estate investing because I think it's phenomenal. I think hedge fund hedge fund companies do this. Um, a lot of corporations do this, but the regular person, the 9 to 5 working individual, isn't aware that this is even a possibility.
Yeah.
So
Now,
that became my whole thing, my whole
do you
goal.
have to have a real estate license to be able to purchase tax liens?
No, it has nothing to do with being licensed.
Okay.
Anyone, any individual as an investor can decide, what, I'm interested in purchasing a tax lien. And what I would say, the first thing you would need to do is you would need to choose a state that you want to do it in. You'd have to find out, you can Google it, if it's a tax lien or a tax deed state. Then I would get in contact with the tax assessor's office, right? To find out what information that they had. They would give it to you in regards to how to register, in regards to whether or not this is an online auction or an in-person auction, because some states still operate in person. Go down to the county courthouse or whatever and do the auction there in person. But a lot of states have now transitioned, and a lot of them are online now. So you would need to know whether or not it's an online auction, in-person auction. You need to know how to register. You would also need to know um, the list, the delinquent property tax list. You would have to, get that from them as well. Sometimes they would, direct you to a website that would actually give you the list. Now, a lot of times when you get this list, oh, and you also want to know the redemption period. That's important. You want to also know.
Man, I'm writing down some questions that I want answered. So I am writing them down just so I don't forget, because if I don't write things down, I do have a tendency to forget. And then it's like, well, wait a second, what was that question? So I have my list going. But I really want to know, like, what's Tiffany's favorite, or like the easiest states for to purchase tax liens or tax deeds. Um, I'm really curious on that one. And I wish I could see if we have any comments from YouTube. So, a question that I had written down, you were just talking about the different states to check for tax lien, tax deed. What are your, that
Mhm.
you have found, what are the easiest states to get started with? And then when you pay the fee for the state, is it broken out by county, or do you have to pick a specific county that you want those listings for?
Yeah, so sometimes it is broken down by county, right? Like Texas, they break it down by county. Harris County, so it just depends. You would have to kind of do some due diligence to find out when you Google the information
Okay.
about that, like if it's broken out. So what I have found and what has worked well for me is I love mid west mid let's say places like Indiana, right? Midwest states, right? And the reason why I love them, Ohio is another one, is because it's affordable. It's affordable. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money on those auctions, being able to obtain those properties, and you can always make interest on whatever you do your bid on. And sometimes it's at the least 10%. Some places it can be 18%, which is definitely better than the stock market, right?
Mhm.
Because now you're gaining interest on money that you've actually invested, knowing that you're going to get all that money, that all that interest back on that money at a set period of time. Unlike if you did the stock market, you don't know when you're going to be, if you sell, you buy, you sell, you don't know when you sell whether or not you're going to get your return, right?
Yeah.
The maximum amount of your return. So for me, I feel like it's a win-win situation. So for all those that are interested, first step, go online, Google whatever state you're interested in, whether it's Texas, Ohio, Florida, Indiana. Find out, whether or not it's a tax lien or a tax deed state. Tax deeds auctions will allow you to gain the property immediately because it's a deed, tax deed. Tax lien means you become the lien holder of that property, which means you're first in line to obtain that property if the person doesn't reclaim it. And you go ahead of any bank, which means you no longer have a mortgage. So again, I didn't even mention this, but these properties are mortgage free, which is a beautiful thing, right? So you don't even you're not even you're gonna get it without a mortgage,
Oh
right?
my
You're not paying
gosh.
a mortgage on it anymore, anything, right? So with that being said, find out if it's a tax lien, tax deed state. Find out the interest on it that you can accrue if they do redeem. Find out how to register. Find out whatever the price is. I think Indiana, their price for registration is $600. Then you find out what else? Then you find out the property list. How do you obtain because these are for properties that are behind and delinquent on their property taxes. It's totally different from auctions that you go to for bank foreclosures. Those auctions are way more expensive. I'm talking about auctions for properties that have defaulted on property taxes. Those are the auctions that you're going to look for. So you're going to get the delinquent list from that town, that city, that county, and you're going to go through the list. And a lot of times on the list, it's just going to have the property address. It's not going to give you any other information.
Okay, so while we wait for Tiffany to come back in, like I said, this has never happened before. So I'm not sure if it's her Wi-Fi, if it's her tech, or if it's something with Riverside. That's a platform that I use for my podcasting. I've never had this issue happen through Riverside, so I'm just curious. I'm just wondering if maybe it's an outside technical issue, but she should be back in here soon. So difference of tax lien, tax deeds. Tax deeds are best because then you fully outright own that property. Tax liens, there is that redemption period that Tiffany was talking about. So I see that, Tiffany,
Well,
you are back.
I'm back. So tax lien, and the only difference between a tax lien and a tax deed is with the tax deed property, you immediately get the deed. Tax lien means you're becoming the lien holder of that property. They both have redemption periods, though. Whether it's a deed or a lien, you're still going to have to go through a redemption period. But
Okay.
after the redemption period, that's when you can actually, like, if it's a tax deed property, after that redemption period, you get to say, okay, this property is mine. So even though you have the deed, someone comes back and says, I'm paying all this stuff back, they can redeem that property from you, right? That's just the way that it works. But if they don't redeem
Okay.
it, then you get to keep the property, right? Tax lien, you go through the process, you're the lien holder, you're the first line, you're going to get that property first if they don't redeem, right?
Okay.
So when you get the property listed, if it's a tax lien state, don't be going to the house walk like you don't own it yet. You can do drive-bys, you can look things up, you can do your due diligence, but you can't just get on the premises and walk around because someone else still owns that property. You can't have access to that property until you actually obtain the deed. Does that
Okay,
make sense?
but it does. But it sounds like to me that either option is a win-win because at the end of it, whichever way that it goes, you're doing tax deed or lien, after that redemption period, if then you're able to do whatever
It's
you
yours.
want with it, make a profit,
Whatever you want to
or
do.
if
You
they
can,
come back and
yep,
they redeem it, you're getting paid what you spent and interest, correct? So either way is a win-win.
absolutely. It's a win-win, baby. And everyone isn't aware of this. And I thought, oh my God, why doesn't anyone, everyone should know. I talk to investors, I deal with them every day. They're not even familiar with this, right? Like everyone isn't aware of how this works. And people think that becoming an investor, you have to do it the conventional way, get a loan, 20% down. And it's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
There's other ways that you can actually obtain the property. A regular 9 to 5 person can actually become a real estate investor. I tell my friends, tax season, we're in tax season, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with your property, your tax returns when you receive them? You know, maybe you get this lump sum and instead of spending it on something else, you use it as this is your investment that you're going to actually hold on to, and you're going to now invest that lump sum in a tax lien or a tax deed. If nothing else, you'll make interest on top of that money, or at the worst case, best case scenario, you'll actually obtain an asset for your investment, which is mortgage free. Can't beat it.
That's
Can't beat it.
no, no.
Can't
So
beat it.
I had mentioned to you, my husband had taken a course on tax liens. He did not sign up for the course. It was just that free seminar. But when I told him
Hmm.
after we had talked the first time, I'm like, oh my gosh, when this episode airs, you need to listen to this because she's going to be talking about tax liens and what to do. And he's like, oh, really? His ears perked up. And he's like, yeah, I need to start looking more into that type of investing. So this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
all
it's
gold.
right.
This is all gold.
And listen, don't be. A lot of investors are more comfortable investing in their backyard, and I say, don't. You don't have to invest in your backyard, right? You can choose a city or state that is affordable for you, right, to invest in doing these tax liens and tax deeds. Worst case scenario, you can hire somebody to go out and take pictures. You can hire someone to manage the property that you
Hmm.
have. You know what I'm saying? Whether you decide that you want to rent it out or whatever, you can. There's companies that will do that for you. So don't allow the fact that you live in a different state to stop you.
Oh, we're just getting to the end of our time on the Goalpreneur podcast, and then it clicks out again. So, what I'm hearing her say is don't be afraid to invest. There are other ways to invest in property that are safe. So you don't have to go to the bank and, put the 20% down or 10% down or whatever it is. You don't have to put that money out up front and then have this huge additional mortgage. You don't need to do it that way. The smarter way that Tiffany is talking about is um looking different states, finding out or paying the fee, and then getting a list for the tax deeds or the tax liens. So I see she's back. Um,
Yep. The
okay.
property list is important. One thing from me doing my REL, this is stuff that you're going to need as far as doing your due diligence. It's not like, okay, let me choose a property, whatever. You still have to do, you have to do your due diligence, and you're going to have to do that due diligence before you do the auction. Meaning you're going to have to pull up the property address. You're going to have to do a drive-by. If you can't be there, you're going to have to hire somebody to drive by, take pictures, right? Because you're only going to have access to the outside of the property, right? Before the auction, you don't have access to the inside. Then you're going to have to check the market. You're going to have to have an exit strategy. Am I going to hold on to this? Am I going to collect the cash flow and rent it out? Or am I going to just give it to a realtor, have them list it and sell it? Maybe I'll renovate it and then put it out on the market. You're going to have, I'm sorry, I'm talking fast, but in case I lose you, you're going to have an exit strategy, right?
Yeah.
So you get the property address, you're already decided, okay, I'm going to hold on to it or I'm going to sell it. Now what you're going to need to do is check the market. You're going to have to find out, like properties like the one that you're interested in doing the auction on. If it's a 4 bedroom 3 bath house, you're going to have to find other properties in the surrounding 3 mile radius that sold that has 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, to be able to determine, if you decide that you want to sell it, how much you can sell it for, right?
Mhm.
Then you also do the same for the rent. Okay, if I'm going to rent it out and it's a 4 bedroom, 3 bath house, what other 4 bedroom, 3 bath house that looks like this is renting, and how much is it renting for? Then you're going to want to also contact the city and find out if there's any permits, any violations, any code violations, because what happens is, now you're the new owner, it's mortgage free, but if you decide that you want to sell it, it may be some permits, it may have had a basement put in and a bathroom put in that they didn't get permits for officially. There could be some code violations that you may be responsible for before you can even sell it, right? So you want to check to see if there's any violations on it. That's part of doing your due diligence. So you want to do this before you actually go and do the auction. Once you have 20 properties that you've looked at and you said, okay, I've narrowed it down to these 20 properties. And I always recommend that you do several, because at the last minute before auction day, people do redeem. So you're thinking, I'm going to get this property, I'm a bid on this, but guess what? It's no longer on the list. Right. So you want to make sure that you have several properties that you want to be able to have utilize, that these are the properties I want to do my auction with. Does that make sense?
Okay. Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
So, um, now I had a question. I didn't write it down, of course. So it will
That's
come
all
back
right.
to me. It happens.
That's
Um,
all right. And let, mhm.
oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, you know, uh, I know people put out information about tax lien investing, tax deed investing, and they give you bits and pieces, right? You're like, okay, I have this information, but I should also know this information. So
She's getting to the good stuff. So, when she comes back in, then we'll finish up with that. So, there are so many companies out there that I have seen through social media and other advertisings about courses or tax liens. And make sure that if you are looking into doing something like this, that you look who's putting on the seminar, if it's a free seminar or workshop or webinar. You're making sure to do your research into this person, that they are reputable. I was just talking about, Tiffany, making sure to do research into who's offering the seminar or the workshop. Make sure that they are reputable, because there's so many scammers out there just wanting
yeah,
money, but won't teach you
yeah.
anything.
Yeah, and you spend all this money trying to learn something, and then they only give you bits and pieces of it. And I try to be as authentic and upfront, because I've been that person, right? I've been
Yeah.
that person. So although I have this knowledge, I'm not using it as leverage to just to make money solely. Like, I want to give you everything that you need. Like, I was listening to a guy talk about tax lien investing, and he was talking about, the properties and everything, but he never talked about the redemption period. He never discussed that, when
Hmm.
you win it, there's a redemption period, which means you may not be able to hold on to it, right? So I try to give out all the information. The best way to find me, if you're interested, because I love to share, I'm on Threads. I love it. I'm on the Threads community, real estate rebel. No, yeah, real estate underscore rebel. Right, is my company name or whatever. You can find me on Threads. You can find me on Instagram as well. Threads is what I use to build my community, those that are interested in real estate investing. So I'm always on there directly giving out pieces of information, giving out all kinds of information. So if you have any questions, I'm like, please ask me, utilize me, use me as a tool, don't
Yeah.
be afraid. And always giving people the, whether it's through comments, phone calls, if you want to do a consultation or whatever, I'm here to be utilized, because I've been there and I know how it is when you feel like there's something you really want to do, but you don't have your circle, you don't have anyone to ask, right? So
Yeah.
utilize me. So you can find me on Threads, because that's where I'm usually talking. So just wanted to
So
give that information out there so you guys be aware.
so your website is realestaterebel.org. I made that mistake. So
Or
it's .org, realestaterebel.org.
absolutely.
Do you have
Yes.
coaching programs on your website, or do you work more
So you can go
one-on-one?
on to, I'm working more one on one, which is good for you guys. You can go on to realestaterebel.org. I'm launching courses, right? Tax lien course. I'm launching courses on how I do my real estate business. If you're trying to create a income stream and you want to learn more about real estate investing, but you want to be able to make money as you learn, I'm doing a course on that because, like I said, that's what led me to become who I am today. Right. So closing on those deals, and I was more so, I always term real estate matchmaker is pretty much what I do. I link the wholesaler with the actual investor, which is the buyer, and I get paid from linking those two together. So I have a course for that if that's something that you're interested in doing and you want to learn more about investing and you want to make money as you go. And then the tax lien, if you want to learn more about tax lien investing. So you can go onto that site, you can sign up for the waiting list. Once I drop it, I will reach out to you directly so you'll know that these courses are now available. If you decide that you just want to have a consultation, you can go onto the website and you can book a consultation as well. So I'm
Okay.
accessible and I'm available to those that are interested.
Okay, this is great. And I'm going to put all of your information into the show notes, make it nice and easy. People are like, I want to learn more about this. Like, that sounds really great. It's a win-win. Yay.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm a mother. I'm a mom, guys. I still have my 9 to 5 job as a flight attendant. I'm been blessed to do it part time, but I'm doing this and I'm not spending.
We lost her again. So I will put all of Tiffany's links into the show notes. Again, hello, real life. This is raw, and things like this happen. You just need to know how to roll with it. So I could say, well, this stunk. This happened to me, and happened to my show, and it didn't go as planned. On one hand, I could be like annoyed or frustrated or fumbled, or I could say this is happening for me because these glitches have never happened before and it's teaching me how to roll with it. Um, so, and then ad lib between the time where Tiffany is not with us and when she comes back on. So Tiffany just gave us a really great episode on how to essentially make more money and without the stress of having another mortgage or putting money down up front or having the stress of investors. So she had a really great episode for us talking about how to start investing in real estate the smart way, and that is by tax deeds or tax liens. And each state is different. I see we have Tiffany back, but there's some, let's see, some issue with her microphone or camera. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get her back. But yeah, check out Tiffany's website. It's realestaterebel.org, realestaterebel.org. And on there, she has information about her upcoming courses, how you can work with her, about how she got started. Her bio is really great. So check out her website, check out Threads. It's real estate underscore rebel on Threads. And then check out her other social media as well as the website. So thank you so much for joining us today on this amazing episode of the Goalpreneur podcast, where we talked about real estate investing the smart way with tax liens and tax deeds. So I want to thank Tiffany Archer for being my very special guest today. It was a little glitchy of an episode, but that's okay. I will edit out what I need to edit out. But I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope something resonated with you. If you're wanting to know more about smart investing in real estate, reach out to Tiffany. She is a vault of knowledge. Everything that she just gave us was like little gold nuggets. She gave us the guts of everything that she knows. She left out the fluff, which I totally appreciate. But she gave you the strategies, the tips to start investing now. So if you want to know more about smart real estate investing through tax liens or tax deeds, reach out to Tiffany. And again, I'll put everything into the show notes. And this episode should be dropping within the next 2 weeks. But for my YouTube viewers, hello, you have this right now. So I can't wait for you to start working with her, hearing more about Tiffany and her journey, and learning everything that she knows. So thank you so much for tuning into the Goalpreneur podcast, and we will talk again soon. Bye.